Hi guys, in this video we're going to have a look at cumulative frequency graphs. Okay, so the first thing to know or to pick up on is cumulative. What does it mean? In this case it just means a running total. So if I have this example here, during a day the number of late buses was recorded, so here's the number of minutes late between 0 and 10, 10 and 20 and so on and so forth, and here I have the frequency, so how many buses were between 0 and 10 minutes late, it was 5 and so on and so forth. So cumulative frequency, as I said, the cumulative bit just means it's a running total. So all I do is the first one is 5, and then the second one will be 5 add 8, which will be 13. So as you can see, I just add the two together to get the running total. And the next one, 5 add 8 add 22, that'll give me 35. And then 5 add 8 add 22 add 12. 47, and you've probably got the right idea now. So 5, 8, 22, 12, and 8, 55, and then add them all up, and then you get 60. So there are 60 buses in total. So it's just a running total when you're working out the cumulative frequency column there. Now, when we plot it, a couple of things you have to be aware of. When you're plotting, you have to use the upper limit. Sometimes in the exam, they'll give you an extra column and tell you to write the upper limit in it. Otherwise, you can just remember and use it from this part of this column here. So I'm going to be plotting 10, and the cumulative frequency is 5. So there's 10 for minutes late, which is the upper limit. I'm going to plot 5. So there we go. Next one, upper limit is 20, and it's 13. So roughly about there. Now obviously when you do this in the exam, you'll have the actual graph paper, so you'll be able to do this a lot more accurately than I'm doing right now, but you get the idea. So next one, upper limit is 30, and it's 35. So there. Next one, upper limit is 40, and 47. So about there. And upper limit is 50 and 55. And the last one, upper limit is 60, and of course 60 in total. Okay, so once you've plotted your points, you then need to draw a nice smooth curve. Okay, so do this in pencil in case you mess it up. And just another thing to be aware of, obviously here the lowest point is 0, so that's where I'm going to start from. However, I have seen in previous exam questions where once they've given you the table, underneath it they've actually said what the lowest value is. They might have said, oh, the lowest value is 5, in which case make sure you start at 5. If they don't tell you anything and all you got is this, you start at this point here. In this case it's 0, so just be aware of that wherever you need to start from. So I'm going to do my best here and draw a nice smooth curve. Make sure you go through all the points, because otherwise you will lose marks. And as I say, use pencil just in case you make a mistake. Okay, so there's my cumulative frequency curve. Should always be increasing, because as I said, it's a running total. So if you suddenly come back down, you know you've made a mistake. Questions that can be asked with a cumulative frequency are estimating the mean, the upper quartile, lower quartile, and then the interquartile range. So let's start off with the median. So the median is the middle value. They're already in order, okay? So I'm going to find the middle value. So if the total is 60, not to be confused with 70, although the cumulative frequency or the y-axis goes up to 70, the actual total is 60. So just be aware of that. That has caught some people out in the past. So the total is 60, so the middle would be 30. So I'm going to get my ruler and draw a line going from 30 across to my cumulative frequency line, and then a nice straight line going down. Again, this would be easier when if you had graph paper. And as you can see there, it's about 28. Now the upper quartile is 3/4 of the way up. Okay, the upper quartile is 3/4. So if the total is 60, 3/4 would be 45. And it's exactly the same thing. So from 45, going across, and then going down, as you can see there. Make sure you draw these lines on, because again it's part of your working, and I'm going to say that's 38. And the lower quartile, you might have guessed it, if the upper is 3/4, the lower is 1/4. So 1/4 of 60 is 15. So there we go. and down, and I'm going to say that's 21. Okay, so the upper quartile is 3/4, the lower quartile is 1/4, and then the interquartile range, you just subtract the two. So the upper quartile, which we said was 38, take away 21, so what's that going to be? 17. Okay, so the interquartile range is 17, so 50% of all the values are within the interquartile range, and that works out at 17. So that's a very basic cumulative frequency. You might be asked, once you've done or found this information out, to draw a box plot. I'm not going to do box plots in this video, I'll do it in a separate one, but just so you're aware that these questions, cumulative frequency and box plots, are usually linked. Okay, so I'll do a box plot video in soon. So that's one example. Let's have a look at another one. So again, very, very similar here. The cumulative frequency table shows information about the diameters of apples, very exciting. But this time I've been given the cumulative frequency column here. Now usually you don't get this because obviously you'll plot it. However, there was a question a couple of years ago where they had a cumulative frequency graph and you had to work out the frequency before working out a histogram. So this is why I've included this one here, where you've been given the cumulative frequency, and I actually want to work out what the frequency is. So, as this is a running total, all I'm going to do is work out the difference between each one. So the first one's obviously going to be 12. And then what's the difference between 12 and 42? Well, that must be 30. And then 42 and 49, well, the difference there is 7. 49 and 54. It's 5, 54 and 58, difference is 4, and then finally 58 and 60 is 2. So again, you can check that this is correct. So 12 add 30 is 42, 12 add 30 add 7 is 49, and so on and so forth. So you can check that you've got your frequencies correct. So that's the purpose of this one. And the rest of it was exactly the same as the first example. So remember, plotting the upper bound. So this time it's 60 and 12. 70 and 42, 80 and 49, 90 and 54, 158, be about there, and 110 and 60. Okay, so again, I haven't been told what the lowest value is, so I'm going to assume it's 50, so that's where I'm going to start at 50. If this was to go a bit further along, make sure you did start or do start at 50. And again, I'm going to try and draw a nice smooth curve going through each of the points. And again, use pencil, just in case you make a mistake, because that probably should be a little bit more smooth, but you get the idea. And the rest of it was the same as before, so estimate the mean. So again, if the total is 60, not to be confused with 70, the total is 60. What's half of 60? It's 30. So I go from 30 to my curve. And I go down, so that's about 67. Again, this would be much easier if you had graph paper. Upper quartile, so 3/4 of the way. So 3/4 of 60 is 45. And then go down. So that's going to be 73, I reckon. Let's go 73. And the lower quartile, again, is 1/4. So 1/4 of 60. So 60 was the total, so 1/4 of that is 15. And that's about 62. Okay, so the interquartile range, just as before, is the upper quartile, which is 73. Take away the lower quartile, which is 62, and then that gets you 11. Okay, so again, this could be put into a box plot. So that's like part B of the question. So make sure you do check out the box plot video once it's done. Okay, so that's drawing cumulative frequency graphs. So next thing I want to have a look at is this here, where they give you a cumulative frequency graph already done, and they ask you some questions. So this one here is students who've just done a test. So the first question it says is how many students took the test. So again, it's not how high the y-axis or cumulative frequency goes to, it's where the graph ends. So here's where it ends. So I go across here and it's 60. So 60 students took the test. So just be aware of that one. How many students got less than 55 marks? Right, so here's the marks on the x-axis. So I go to 55. I'm just looking at this. Yep. So I go to 55. And I go up. And then I can go across. Like so. So how many people got less than 55 marks? There we go, it's about 58. Next one, how many students got over half marks? So half marks, well, they ends there, the cumulative frequency graph, so I go down to 60, so half marks there would be 30. So I'm going to go up from 30. And I'm going to go across. So how many students got less? So it's less than this. So as I go to there, it's 35. So how many students got less than 50? Sorry. Oh, sorry, I'm here now, aren't I? How many students got over half marks? So this time it's over half marks. So if 30 is half marks, I go up. I'm looking at here. How many are over? Okay, so under is 35, which means over must be 25. So it's 25 students, okay, because I've got, that's 35, so 35 students got under half, and there's 60 in total, which means 25 must have got over, and you can test that if you like. So 5, 10, 20, so yep, 25. Next bit says write your answer as a percentage. Well, it's 25 students out of a total of 60. So if you do 25 over 60, times that by 100, you can then get that as a fraction, which if you use a calculator comes out at 41.67%. Okay. And last question here, if 3/4 of the students pass the test, what is the pass mark? So this one here is a bit trickier. If 3/4 passed, that means that 1/4 failed or did not pass. Okay, in which case, if I find a quarter, remember 60 was how many students there were, so a quarter of them are failing, so a quarter would be 15, so I go from 15 across and down. So then I come to 20 marks, so 20 marks would be the pass mark, because a quarter of them failed, so everything below that would be a fail, everything above that, so 3/4 above that, that would be the pass. Okay, so just make sure that you're being a bit careful there. If you find 3/4 down here, so go from 45 and across, that'll tell you 3/4 of the people who got below that, whereas you don't want that, you want to know how many 3/4 above that. So to work it out, we find a quarter, and then everyone above that has passed, everyone below that has failed. So a quarter would be 20 marks. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.